Hello everyone, in last lecture we have seen how to represent a point in 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension form in rectangular coordinate system. Now that was coordinate system which allow me to specify any point in space with reference to a particular coordinate by set of 3 numbers, and I was able to specify any point in space with respect to this coordinate system. Of course, I could have chosen any other coordinate system, but you know that if I choose the different coordinate system, the number associated with the point will change, but the point themselves will physically remain same. The point will not change, only the number associated with point will change if you change the coordinate system. So consider over here in this slide, we are considering associating a vector to this coordinate system. Till now we were talking about how to associate a point in 3-dimensional rectangular coordinate system. Now I want to associate a vector on this plane or on this space. Okay, then how do I describe a vector? Remember, all the vectors are drawn with their origin sitting at origin of coordinate system, such that I can now specify any vector, the endpoint of any vector, by 3 numbers. So in this particular case, I have a vector r which is called as position vector, and this position vector has its origin at 0 and it terminates at some point which is intersection of these 3 planes. So this plane that you are seeing here in front is where x is constant, this plane where y is constant, and this is the plane where z is constant. Okay, so if you know if you bring all 3 planes together, the intersection will be the terminating point of r. So I can draw a line from origin until I reach the point over here. That will be a vector r for me. In another word, giving any vector whose origin at this origin itself, which is terminating at any other point in space, all I have to do is set up 3 planes so that I can describe end point of the vector. This vector now can be just specified by 3 numbers, or I can resolve this vector in 3 different vectors. These 3 different vectors, how do I resolve that? Means how I can resolve this vector in 3 different vectors. Remember, resolving a vector means you take a vector and then look at the component of the vector along x direction, along y direction. If you are working with 2 dimension, now there is no reason why we can't do this for 3-dimensional case. So you can take a vector and look at its components along x-axis, along y-axis, and along z-axis. So you can actually resolve a vector into 3 components, x, y, and z. So that is previously what we are going to do. Now when you resolve a vector, you will actually be generating 3 mutually perpendicular vectors. Okay, just as in 2-dimensional case, you generate 2 mutually perpendicular vectors. Here you are going to generate 3 mutually perpendicular vectors. So these vectors are x into x hat, y into y hat, and z into z hat, where x, y, and z are the magnitudes or the point that are dependent on the particular vector r that you are considering. Okay, x hat, y hat, and z hat are the unit vector along x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. So we have seen how we can resolve a vector in 3 different vectors which are placed mutually perpendicular to each other. Okay, so now we want to add 2 vectors or subtract 2 vectors. We have already seen how do we do this graphically, but with the knowledge of coordinate system, is it possible for me to do all this without drawing a line every time and without translating one vector onto another vector? Yes. Is it possible? And to do that, we will see this example. So you start imagining that every point can be represented by a vector, okay, and whose origin is at the origin and which terminate at the desired point. For example, I have two vector here, rp and rq, which are defining two different positions. Position p, which is given by 1, 2 and 3. How do I get 1, 2, 3? I have moved along 1 unit along x-axis, then 2 unit along y-axis, then 3 unit along z-axis. So I get to the point P, which is 1 unit along x-axis, 2 unit along y-axis, 3 unit along z-axis. So this point is described equivalently by a vector rp. Okay, so please note that this point in space, which has its coordinates 1, 2, 3, can be equivalently defined by a vector rp. Okay. Similarly, if I take another position vector q, which is at 2, -2 and 1, I can define another vector rq, whose origin again situated at origin of the coordinate system and which is terminating, or whose head is situated at 2, -2 and 1. Again, I am moving 2 unit along x-axis, -2 unit along y, means in the opposite direction of y, and then 1 unit along z-axis. So you have a vector rp q, which is directing from p to q. This vector is not defined in terms of origin. So how I am going to describe this vector rpq? So here is where the vector addition will come to help us. So I know that, I will just clear this. So I know that this vector rp plus this vector rpq is equals to vector rq. Okay, so this rpq plus rp plus rpq is equals to vector rq. So what we said about all the vector being at origin means that every point is equivalently represented by a vector whose origin is at origin of the coordinate and which terminates at particular point. However, the vector rpq is a vector which is not defined from origin. It is actually defined by 2 points p and q, and you have to specify those points for these vectors. Okay, so how can I specify vector rpq in terms of position vector rp and rq? So how do I do that? You start using vector addition, that rp plus rpq is rq. So if I transform, or I transfer this rp on this right hand side, rpq is equals to rq minus rp. Okay, so the vector rp can be represented, if you remember the last slide, as we represented r vector by using 3 component x, y, z, which was x into x hat, y into y hat, and z into z hat. Therefore rp can be represented as x into x hat, 1 into x hat, 2 into y hat, and 3 into z hat. Similarly, rq can be represented as 2x hat minus 2y hat plus 1z hat. Now if I subtract rq from rp, I am going to get capital rpq. How do I subtract that? In a given coordinate system, a vector is represented by 3 points x, y, and z, or x into x hat plus y into y hat plus z into z hat. Okay, so let us assume or consider 2 vectors a and b. Both are defined by 2 position x1, y1, z1 and x2, y2, z2. The sum of 2 vectors is given by a vector whose components are added to get x1 plus x2, y1 plus y2, z1 plus z2. Okay, x component is given by x1 plus x2, y component is y1 plus y2, z component is z1 plus z2. Similarly, to get the difference between A and B, you have to subtract x2 from x1 for x component, y2 from y1 for y component, and z2 from z1 for z component. So these are 3 points define the end point of different vectors A minus B, difference vector. Similarly, these 3 points defined the end point of sum vector A plus B. So if you go back in previous slide, RPQ, is RQ minus RP, and you can subtract the individual component like this. So you are going to get x hat minus 4y hat minus 2x hat. Okay, so which is equivalently can be represented as a vector whose tail is at origin and whose head is at 1, minus 4 and minus 2. Okay, this is how you are going to subtract or add vectors in coordinate system. Now you don't have to bring one vector onto another vector and then add them. Okay, so this is going to simplify our work. So we have seen how to define a vector in 3-dimensional Cartesian coordinate system. So given a vector A, I can resolve this vector into 3 components which are mutually perpendicular. So when we say mutually perpendicular, we mean if you take a pair of vector, these pair of vector will be perpendicular to each other. So A can be resolved into 3 components: Ax into x hat plus ay into y hat plus az into z hat, and we call this ax, ay, az as the component, x component of vector A, y component of vector A, and z component of vector A. So we have 3 components. Okay, and the vector that we formed along direction will be component times the vectors. These are unit vectors. Now one of the thing that we have to see in Coulomb's law is that we not only require a vector but we also require a magnitude, because the magnitude gives the separation between 2 charges. So when you have 2 charge separated by a distance r, we define a unit vector along line that join 2 vectors, but at the same time I also want to know what is the magnitude of the separation. So to get the magnitude of separation, we need to define magnitude of vector. So we normally denote magnitude of vector by putting 2 vertical lines. So this is the denotation of magnitude of vector. Sometimes we simply write down number without vector notation like this. Okay, so that would also denote the magnitude of vector, and this magnitude of vector is given by square root of ax square plus ay square plus az square. Okay, which you can think of 3-dimensional generation of Pythagoras rule. So magnitude of vector actually tells us the distance of vector from origin of coordinate system to that particular point. So what point the head of vector is located with respect to origin is given by the magnitude. So distance from origin of the vector to the tail or end point of the vector is the magnitude of vector. So what is magnitude of unit vector? 1. So do not forget that unit vector has a magnitude 1. So I will just repeat, magnitude of vector is distance from origin, and unit vector has a magnitude of 1. So how do I define a unit vector along a particular direction? So I have a vector A which is starting at origin and terminating at some point in 3-dimensional space, like 3-dimensional space it is terminating. I will just draw it. Okay, so how do I define a unit vector along that in this direction? What is unit vector? So it is a vector which is directed at a particular direction, any direction. If vector is directed along x-axis, then it will be a unit vector across x direction given by x hat. Okay, if it is directed along y direction, then it is y hat, or you can say unit vector along y direction. Okay, so if I have a unit vector directed in general along a vector, I can denote this as same a hat. Okay, or like this a hat. And what is that? It is a vector, so I need to give a vector a itself, but since the magnitude of vector has to be unity, so I have to divide a by its magnitude. So it's some sort of normalization. Okay, so if I have 10 x hat as a vector along x direction, then I will divide it with 10, which is the magnitude of this vector. I will get a unit vector along x direction. So same rule, if I want to specify a unit vector a, I specify this by writing a letter a, putting hat on the top, and I can sometime use bold letter a with subscript also. We have talked that about earlier also, denotation of unit vector. Okay, so unit vector along a particular direction is given by a vector divided by its magnitude. So this is unit vector along a vector in a particular chosen coordinate system. Okay, here are some exercise for you. I have given you 3 points M, N and P. M as at point -1, 2 and 1, N at 3, -3, 0 and P at -2, -3, -4. What I would like you to do is first find a piece of paper and draw the 3 axes and try to represent that point M, N and P on that piece of paper. Okay, so I want to get some familiarity with representation of point. So take this as an exercise and locate the point M, N and P. Now remember, to every point M and P and Q, I can actually define a vector whose origin is at origin and with head at M, N and P. I want you to find out this vector Rmn. What is this vector Rm and N? Rmn is a vector which is directed from M to N. It is directed from M point to N point. If I am having 3 points, Rmn is directed from M to N. So it is a vector which is directed from M to N, and it is given as Rn minus Rm. Okay, this is in general. If I have a vector Rmp, so it would be a vector which is directed from M to P. So similarly, you find Rmp in this and then add these Rmn plus Rmp. Need to do this both way, graphically as well as coordinate system value. Finally, find the magnitude of vector M and also find the unit vector of along the direction of M. Okay, so how do I find out unit vector along direction M? You know that what is vector M, and divide by its magnitude. What is the magnitude? You already found that out in previous exercise. Okay, so you do all these exercises to gain some familiarity with using the vectors. Okay, so we have taken a large digression from Coulomb's law. we were discussing Coulomb's law, then we start discussing vector analysis, went to coordinate system. All this was required because electromagnetics is essentially a three-dimensional subject. Okay, so you need to know vector analysis, you need to know how to set up coordinate system if you want to do a success in electromagnetic course. Okay, so we will now come back to Coulomb's law and try to work out a problem. Hopefully what that we have learned in vector analysis and coordinate system will come to our help and help us find the solution to this particular problem. So what is the problem? It is essentially a simple problem. We have a origin. Okay, we have two charges, one charge is q1, another is q2. The charge q1 has a magnitude of 200 microcoulombs. Micro is prefix for 10 to the power minus 6. Okay, so this is 200 into 10 to the power minus 6 or 200 microcoulombs. So this q1 is located at 102. This is 3. Okay, so here in this particular figure I have rotated the axis to show you everything hopefully in clarify manner. So this is x-axis, this is y-axis, and this is z-axis. Okay, so to locate 1, 0 and 3 I have to move 1 unit along x-axis, then there is no movement in y direction and y is equals to 0. Now I have to move along z and z is equals to 3 to this point, to reach this point q1 or charge q1 whose value is 200 microcoulomb. Please note that this is positively charged particle which I have put here. Okay, similarly we have q2 with a value of 300 microcoulomb and it is also positively charged and it is located at 0 to 1. So 0 means x is equals to 0 over here. Okay, so you are looking only at the intersection of y and x plane. The point is 0 to 1 is in y and x plane. So you can see here that I have to move 2 unit in y direction and then I have to move 1 unit in z direction in order to reach q2. So now the question is q1 is exerting some force on q2 and find the force F2. So Coulomb's law will help us to find this, but Coulomb's law requires us to give both magnitude and as well as direction. Magnitude is easier part, direction is something that we want to understand. So this, if I denote the point, I will just clear it once. So if I denote the point where the q1 is placed by vector r1 and if I denote the point where q2 is placed by vector r2, then I know that because the Coulomb's law also tell me that the force will act along the line joining two charges. So this F2 will act along the line that join q1 and q2. I define that as r12 as a vector which is starting at q1 and ending at q2. So in the direction of the force, this is the direction of the force. So I have a position vector r1, I have a position vector r2 for charge q2 and r12 is the vector starting from q2 to q2. It is starting at q1 and ending at q2. So I know clearly that r12 is given by r2 minus r1. Okay, where r1 is the position vector of q1 and r2 is position vector of q2. Okay, so q1 is placed at 103. So now it is in plane x and z. Okay, so you can see that this is how x will be increasing. This is how z is increasing. So this is the plane of z and x and z plane. So r1 is given by x hat plus 3z hat. Similarly, r2 is y2 into y hat plus z hat, because r2 is in y and z plane. Okay, so now remember how to find r12. We have to minus r2 from r1 from r2, and I have to look out the component. The y component of r2 subtract y component of r1. Okay, so, subtract z component of r1 with z component of r2, subtract x component of r1 with x component of r2. So you can do this subtraction, and you will see r12 is a vector that is in 3-dimensional, and it has all 3 non-zero component. Because it has all 3 non-zero component, it is 3-dimensional, and it is given by minus 1 x hat plus 2 y hat plus 2 z hat. So this is vector r12. Now force act along this line is fine, but what we want is not the force acting along that one. What I want is not the statement that force is acting along r12. What I want is the unit vector along r12. So what is unit vector along r12? That will be the vector r12 divided by its magnitude. I have already found out that r12, the magnitude of r12 is x component square plus y component square plus z component square and all under root. Okay, so over here minus 1 square plus 2 square plus minus 2 square will give me 3. So this is the magnitude of r12. I hope that you drive this one for yourself and convince yourself that this is correct. Okay, so coming back to the force part, I have already found out the unit vector. So now I know if I get the magnitude of the force, then I multiply it with unit vector along r12, I will get the full vector f2. Write a vector from r12, its unit vector is its vector r12 divided by its magnitude. Okay, so its magnitude is 3 and vector is given by minus x hat plus 2 y hat plus minus 2 x hat. Okay, so now I have unit vector which is acting along the force direction. Now I want the magnitude of force. Then for the magnitude of the force, we will use the formula obtained from Coulomb's law. Okay, so for magnitude it will have q1 and q2 also over here. Okay, so magnitude of vector is q1 into q2 4 pi epsilon naught r12 square. So why epsilon naught? Because there was no specification on the medium, so just take the medium to be air or free space, and we know that for air and free space epsilon naught r value is 1, so epsilon naught only we have to consider. So usually we will take the approximation that 1 by 4 epsilon naught is equals to 9 into 10 to the power 9. Okay, so when you just approximated that, to calculate the magnitude of force, put it over here, multiply it with magnitude of charges and divide it by distance square. So the distance between two is 3 square, that is r12 square. So you are going to get 6 newtons. So this is the magnitude of force. However, in terms of vector, I need to multiply the magnitude by unit vector. So this is unit vector and I am multiplying it with magnitude. So I will get a vector force F2 by multiplying unit vector with its magnitude, and I will get F2. Okay, so now that you have seen this example, relook at the example once more, understand all the steps that are there in the example, then try your hand at finding the force exerted by Q1, which is placed at origin of three-dimensional coordinate system 0 0 0 and has the value of 100 nano coulombs. Okay, so find a force exerted by Q1 on Q2 charge, which is placed at 430. Okay, and its magnitude is 3 nano coulombs. You can verify that the answer is approximately 86.4 into x hat plus 64.8 y hat nanonewtons. So it is very small value because the charge magnitudes are also very small and the distance between two charges are quite large. This is not the part of magnet. Okay, now before leaving this exercise, you are ask yourself one question: does it make sense? Does this answer make sense? Well, the answer makes sense because look at where the charge Q1 is placed. It is at origin. Now Q2 is placed at xy plane only. Okay, so it is placed in at 4 and 3 and z component is 0. So the force that much must be acting on Q2 must originated from origin because Q1 charge is at origin and will directed to Q2, and this force will only be in xy plane only. Okay, so there is no chance of the force to be in z plane for this problem. So in this problem you expert only in x and y component for the solution. That makes sense. So you have to always do a sanity check on whatever the answer that you find, so that you are seeing that everything what you have done is correct. So this is sanity check. If you keep doing this, you will not make mistake while driving the answer. So now I want to introduce Coulomb's law and change the notation that we use slightly. So previously we had AR12 or AR as unit vector, but now we go to different charge distribution. It become easy to use different notation. There is a reason why we go to another or different notation. I will tell you when we go to notation later. So we keep some source charge, okay, and the source charge I'm still labeling as Q1, but I'm specifying the position of source charge. The position of source charge Q1 is at position R prime. R prime is the position vector from origin to the source point. Okay, similarly test point, previously what we consider as charge Q2, which is defined by position vector R, but now I am calling it as a test charge. Okay, so this is known as source point, this is known as field point. So this is field point where I'm interested in finding force. You will soon see why this is called as field point, but for now just take the fact that position vector without a prime is field point and the position vector with primes are source point. So this part has not changed. This part has not changed. All that we have done is to identify the position of charge with Q1 is R prime and for Q2 is R. Now what is unit vector? Unit vector is one that join R prime and R. So it is a vector that is directed from R prime to R. That is from source point to field point. We know that vector is given by R minus R prime divided by its magnitude. Okay, and magnitude of vector is r minus r prime magnitude. Okay, even the separation between two vectors is magnitude square. Okay, so multiply square part will make 1 minus r prime square, but get multiply by r minus r prime so as to give you r minus r prime. So here you are having distance as well as unit vector, so keep this in mind. Now you will frequently find, as we go to next lectures, we will frequently find that we are dealing with not only one point charge, or we are not dealing with just one charge. We are dealing with charge distribution located at a point in space. So we will be dealing with many charges or continuous distribution of charges. So far that case we have known how to obtain a force when we have more than one charge. So let us have a 10 different charges. Okay, how do I obtain the force? The answer comes in the form of superposition. Okay, what is superposition of forces? Fix the test charge location and do not change that one. So let's take a test charge located at position R. Okay, and we call it QT. We are calling it QT. Just that the script T indicates test charge. So I have a QT for R standing for position vector of the field point where I am keeping the test charge. Now the source charge could be placed anywhere. This placing of charge anywhere, I am denoting this by Rj prime, where J corresponds to jth charge of magnitude Qj or sign charge magnitude Qj. And what I want to find out is the force experienced by test charge, and this force will be given by vector sum. This is vector sum. This is not a scalar addition. This is a vector sum because individual forces are vector. So what is this F1T means? It is force because of first charge on test charge. F2T is the force of second charge on test charge, and so on. How are these forces obtained? You simply break the charge, or you simply find out the force because of each of these source charges and then sum together, and summing is helping only on the source charge distribution. Okay, that is why summation sign with J to source charge, not to field charge. So in fact you can pull this field outside, and whatever that you are left with, what you multiply with QTR is going to give you the force by qth charge on test charge Q. Okay, so this force of jth charge on test charge, and if you sum all these forces, you are going to get particular expression. Okay, so we will not solve any problem with superposition of forces. We will in fact solve a particular different problem of continuous charge distribution later. Here is where I want to talk about line, surface and volume elements and kind of finish the Cartesian coordinate system. For now we will be requiring only Cartesian coordinate system. Okay, so suppose I have a two-dimensional plane with x-axis and y-axis. Okay, so if I move certain distance, say dx, along x-axis, so I will actually be generating a vector whose head or whose tail is on origin, lies on origin, and whose head lies at dx. That is this particular vector that I have generated by moving along x-axis is dx x hat. I could now move vertically to generate another vector which is dy y hat. Of course, this dy y hat is actually parallelly translated from this particular vector, right? So you need to remember that one. Okay, So these vector I have generated are called as line elements. So this is called as line element along x-axis. This is called as line element along y-axis. Okay, and line element along x-axis is given by a distance that I have moved along x-axis. Similarly, I have a line element along y, which is the distance I have moved along y-axis. So this dy y hat. Okay, if I now consider a general direction of the movement, I can write down this as dlx. I can write down one second. Okay, 1 minute. So I can write down this as dlx to generalize it. So I will actually be generating a vector whose head or whose tail is at 0 and whose head lies at dx from a particular, means from origin. Okay, so this vector dl, which represent a vector from origin to a particular point, call this as a p, can be now decomposed into two component, dlx and dly, which is nothing but dx x hat plus dy y hat. Okay, these are two components of vector along x and y, and this dl is sum of them. So magnitude of dx square plus dy square under root will give you the magnitude of dl vector. Okay, so is the magnitude of dl vector is dl x square plus dl y square. Okay, so this is called as line elements. So you will be seeing that line elements and line integral very soon. So this is the simplest line element that we have considered. Okay. Now we will consider surface element. For this I will be going from 2 dimension to 3 dimension, because with 2 dimension I can only define one surface area, whereas with 3 dimension I can define 3 surface area. Okay, so in accordance with right hand rule, I have x-axis, y-axis, so this will be my z-axis. So you can imagine this is the object that I am considering. Okay, the line that you see along x-axis, or you can say that this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis, this is the, if you go from x to y, you are going to see direction along z-axis. So now if I ask you what is the area of this particular face, to get the area of face I need length, I need width. Okay, so what is length? Some length, let us say, but if I am assuming all the length as dy, dx and dz, so the face area is dy if you move along y-axis, dy, and if you move along z-axis, dz. So if I move the distance of dz in the direction z, and if I move a distance of dy, I will get an area dy dz. That would be my area dy into dz. So if I have an area which is ds into x, I will call this as dy dx, and this is the front surface area. This is the front surface area in which I have moved dy and I moved dz. Now I want to associate a vector to this face. How do I associate a vector to this face? I will simply multiply by vector x. So how is vector x pointing? Vector x is pointing away from the surface, right? This vector is perpendicular to the surface area. So this is how we associate a vector surface area. Okay, so we associate a vector surface area by giving the area and then considering a direction that is perpendicular to that surface area, or in mathematical language, normal to that surface area. So this is x is normal to this dy dx. So this is vector surface area along x direction. Similarly, if I go dx, then I move dy along this one. So I am going to get a area of this top surface or bottom surface. I will call this as dsx z, and this is dx dy, and z is the direction. So of course I could have chosen the direction of x for the front surface to be inside, which would be opposite to the x direction. But we always use surface area, again similar to right hand rule. That right hand rule says that if I move along x from x to y, I will move along z. Similarly, dsx will be dy dz, and I move along positive x. So ds z will be a vector surface area of this top surface moving along z direction. Okay, so this is particular top surface is dsx, so it would be pointing along z direction. Here is it is pointing along x direction. So can you figure out what will be the surface area for this side? Yes, you can easily figure this out. This would be dsy. So it will be move along dx and then move along dz. So this would be dx into dz along y direction. So these are the three surface element or surface area that you are going to see. So this is the magnitude of surface area, and this is the direction that would be perpendicular to the plane that contain these two elements. Okay, so dy is direction along y axis, dz is direction along z axis, dx is direction along x axis, dz is direction along z axis. Okay, so what would be the volume element? So this is what the differential volume of this box. While you have length, you have width, you have height, so it is nothing. Dx, dy, dz. Is there area is also associated? Thankfully no. So the volume element is this scalar, which is dx, dy, dz, give you the area of this volume of this particular cuboid.